Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be looking at one of the questions that someone has been asked when the person went for interview in histopathology. We had also looked at similar question, but this question was now asked in a different way. I think in the past we had looked at something like which control can be used in ABPAS staining. But this time around, the question has been asked in a different way. So the person went for interview and they asked the person this question: why is ABPAS staining important? Why is ABPAS staining important? Now, that is what we're going to look at. But before we continue, my name is Dr. Emmanuel Obodo. I'm a biomedical scientist and I'm also a lecturer in biomedical science here in the United Kingdom. So let's get into this. So if you remember in the past, we looked at the controls in tissue staining. When we want to employ ABPAS 10, what type of control can we use? We look at things like intestine and stomach and so on. Okay, now we're going to look at why is this ABPAS 10 important. I think we should start with, first of all, reminding ourselves once again what is really AB and what is really PAS. One of the things I would like you to know that these are two different stains put together, meaning that it is a combined stain. So these two stains, has now been combined together and it becomes one stain. And that is why AB talk about Asian blue and why PAS talk about periodic acid skiff. And that is why it can be called Asian blue periodic acid skiff. So these are two stains put together. So why then is it important? Remember previously I'd already told you guys that this stain is a differential stain. Okay, and because it's a differential stain, what it does is to differentiate different type of mucin. So it differentiates acidic mucin from neutral mucin, as the case may be. Therefore, one of the main important why ABPAS 10 is important is because number one, it can help or it can act as a differential mucin stain. It can act as a differential stain from different mucin. Does that make sense? So meaning it can be able to differentiate different type of mucin. And because it can do that, then it means that it can now be able to help in the diagnosis of diseases. So number two, this stain is important because it can aid in the diagnosis of diseases. Now, number three, because of this quality of this very stain, remember then, it means that it can be able to bring out the morphology, the architecture of this very tissue. It can bring it up very well. It can amplify it, meaning that it can aid in the understanding of the architecture. So number three, then, this very ABPAS 10 can help to amplify the understanding of the tissue architecture. Okay, and finally, this stain can also be applied in different tissues and species, so it can be versatile and it can apply broadly. So these are the four main important of the ABPAS stain. So I have said number one, it acts as a differential staining technique that differentiates neutral mucin from acidic mucin. Number two, it can help to amplify the understanding of different conditions, hence helping in the diagnosis of diseases. Number four, it can also help to increase the understanding of the tissue architecture. And again, finally, it can then be applied broadly, meaning that it can be used broadly. It can be applied in different tissues and species, as the case may be. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Now, if you look at that, then you are going to see that obviously AB, which is Asian blue, it is a basic stain. Asian blue is a basic stain, and because it is a basic stain, what is going to do that is going to stain the opposite, so which is now the acidic aspect of the tissue. So what it then mean that is going, and because it is specific on mucin, what it mean that because it is a basic stain, is going to stain the acidic content of the mucin. Does that make sense? So now when you look at the mucin secreted from the tissue, the acidic secreted mucin, that means the acidic mucin would then be stained by this very basic stain known as Asian blue. Why the neutral secreted mucin would then be stained by what? Periodic acid, from the word acid skiff, it means that it is acidic stain. And because it is acidic stain, it can then stain the basic content, which means that it can stain the basic content or the neutral content of the mucin. So that is why it is a two stain. One is a basic, one it is acidic. The one that is basic will stain the acidic content of the mucin, while the one that is acidic will then stain the basic content of the mucin. So that's why this ABPAS, they play a major role in differentiating the acidic stain mucin, the acidic secreted mucin from the neutral secreted mucin. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Now, what that then means is that you see that when it comes to tissue, then when it comes to tissue, then it means that these tissues can secrete different mucins, and each type of the mucin that they secrete can help to understand what is actually happening in that very tissue. Does that make sense? So when these very tissues secrete different mucins, whether it is acidic or neutral, what that can help us to be able to understand what exactly type of mucin that have been secreted is by applying or employing ABPAS stain. In the diagnosis, obviously, you're going to see, remember we mentioned about intestine and stomach being used then. So what it means in the diagnosis, it can help us to diagnose different conditions associated with gastrointestinal tract. So any form of condition associated with gastrointestinal tract, this very ABPAS stain can help to be able to encourage the diagnosis or identification of what is going on, to be able to encourage the diagnosis of such condition. So now, what will be the example? The example in terms of the gastrointestinal can be either the stomach or intestine. Now, you can refer back to the previous video where we now said that the stomach and intestine can be used as a control for this very ABPAS stain. Now, because in the gastrointestinal tract, things like intestine and stomach, where significantly this very mucin can be secreted, so this ABPAS can be able to identify whether it is acidic mucin secreted or basic mucin secreted. Therefore, it can now enhance the understanding of that condition, helping in the diagnosis of this very gastrointestinal tract condition. Does that make sense? Another thing it can do is to help in the diagnosis of respiratory tract diseases. So that means when you consider things like the lungs, of course, the bronchi, the bronchus, as the case may be. So every form of respiratory tract diseases, in the respiratory tract, this very mucin obviously can also be secreted. And of course, its secretion can be able to help us to understand what is actually going on. So it can help in the diagnosis of respiratory tract diseases, where you can now look at things like chronic bronchitis, cystic fibrosis, and other conditions. These are all associated with what? Respiratory tract. Does that make sense? So these are so in addition to the gastrointestinal tract diagnosis of the condition, it can also help in the diagnosis of condition associated with what? Respiratory tract. Does that make sense? This very ABPAS, in addition to the diagnosis, helping in the diagnosis of gastrointestinal tracts or respiratory tract diseases, it can also help identification of tumor. That means tumor identification. What it means is that, remember that different type of the mucin secreted can be able to give us understanding of the kind of tumor that may be present or the kind of cancer that may be present, as the case may be. So therefore, when it identifies the type of mucin present, it can help us to identify the kind of tumor present. Does that make sense? So I've mentioned three things now in the diagnosis. It can help in the diagnosis of what? Gastrointestinal tract diseases. It can also help in the diagnosis of respiratory tract diseases, and of course it can help in the identification of tumors. Does that make sense? Yeah. I've also mentioned the fact that this very ABPAS, because of these characteristics, can also help us to understand the architecture, the morphological appearance of this very tissue, and that understanding obviously can also encourage the diagnosis as well. And of course, I have said that it can apply in broadly. It can be versatile in its application, meaning that it can be used in a wide range of tissues and species, as the case may be. So in conclusion, This very ABPAS10 can act as a powerful tool to biomedical scientists and of course to the pathologists in helping to diagnosis of the patient condition, because this very stent acts as a differential stent that can help to differentiate acidic mucin from the neutral mucin, and of course it can help to increase the understanding of the architectural structure of the tissue, and of course it can apply broadly. So if you do go for interview, they ask you, why is ABPAS important? It is important for 4 things. 1, it can act as a differential stenting techniques. I've mentioned what that means. 2, it can help in the diagnosis of condition. I've told you why. And 3, it can help to increase the understanding of the architectural structure of the tissue. And finally, it can is a powerful tool that can be employed in a wide range of tissues and species. I hope that makes sense. Okay, now anyway, do let me know what you think about the video, and thank you very much for listening. Please, can I ask you to subscribe, share, like, and comment? Thank you, and I wish you all the best till I come back your way again. Bye-bye.